Hey guys, subscribe for daily content. And if you're shopping for gear, make sure you check out the description for the newest items at some of the very best online retailers. There's also links for some of the items that I personally recommend. Thanks!
What's going on YouTube? Metal Complex here, and today I've got not really a review because I've already reviewed this knife, but more of just really a discussion video about this particular model and what it represents to me and why I think it's really, really important. This is the Zero Tolerance 0308 CF, which is a shinier version of the basic version that is out there. It's an expensive knife, but this really brings back this nostalgic feeling for me. And I'm going to talk about that today. If you're interested in this knife at all, I will link it right down in the description because it is available. It does help my channel when you use those links, but that's entirely up to you. Thanks to ZT or KaiUSA for sending this in. Thanks to my patrons for supporting me. Please make sure to follow me on Instagram at metal_complex, and at least for the time being, on TikTok at the_metal_complex. So I'm going to go through specs here, but I've reviewed this knife, and you know, I've been collecting pocket knives and been an active member of the knife community for a long time. I would say about 15 years since I picked up, a knife and thought of it as more of, just more than just a pocket knife. I was like, wow, this is really cool, right? And I kind of started to climb that ladder and started to learn things and, went down just like we all do. You go down some confusing paths and you sort of misunderstand things. And then you go here and you learn a little bit, but you misunderstand again. And just all this. At some point I arrived at Zero Tolerance, and I remember seeing those knives, like knowing that expensive knives existed, but I remember seeing ZT. I think that the one that got me was the 0562, specifically the one, because they had it in G10 and LMAX, but they had a special one in carbon fiber and M390. And that was one of the first references. I think this was back in 2013 or so. It was one of the first references that I had ever heard to M390. And back then, M390, while not a new composition technically, because, I think 20CV is nearly identical composition, and a long time ago it was Duratec, and I think the patent was literally 1999, right? But I remember it being hailed as magical stuff, right? And it's still great stuff. When it's properly heat treated, it's still very, very great. But I remember seeing that combination, and my newly budding knife enthusiast mind was like, oh boy, now that is crazy. It is a titanium frame lock on bearings. I've heard of these things. Titanium frame locks are run on bearings. I've heard of this legendary ZT action, the D10. I'd sit there, I watched countless videos, right? I know you guys, I know that a lot of you are doing this right now, and I'm the content creator you're doing that through. I was sitting there doing that, and I was like, man, this is the holy grail of pocket knives, surely. And I can't afford the Hinderer. I can't even find one, right? This is the ZT Hinderer, right? Loved that combination, and that really locked in. It really imprinted on my mind, this combination of materials and this specific look. ZT had it. It was big, but not huge, right? It was luxurious, but not too pretty. It was a perfect combination for me. And I remember getting that knife. I went ahead, I gritted my teeth, and I said, God, am I about to spend $240 on a pocket knife? You guys remember back when you could get the 0562 carbon fiber for $240? Oh, man, if only. But I gritted my teeth and I paid $240 for that thing. And I got it, and I was like, oh my God, that is perfect. It really was, in my mind, I thought, I'm building this up. It's not really going to be that great, but I got it, and I was like, wow, there really is a difference. I was so skeptical, right? We all know that feeling. Could it really be that much better? No pocket knife should really cost more than $50, right? Ooh, it's easy to say until you do it, and then you get it in hand, and a lot of people consider that just sort of self-reaffirmation, and it's not real. But for those of you who have done it and actually held these things and experienced them, you find out, yeah, while not all of these elements equate to utility, because the truth is you can get a great pocket knife for $50 and it'll do exactly what you need it to do. A lot of these extra elements you don't really know until you handle it, and you realize, wow, these things are super nice. Anyways, the point of that is it imprinted on me. It really got me. And I really enjoyed Zero Tolerance knives for years. They made a bunch of really awesome models that I loved, and they were priced, I kind of got used to the price point. I was like, yeah, I can justify this, right? This was before the prices started really bumping up. 2018, 2019, 2020, we started seeing massive price increases, and it's still happening today. This is an expensive knife. Way more expensive than the 0562 that I bought in 2013, 2014. But as these prices increased, Zero Tolerance, so it's all under Kai USA, right? So it's Kershaw and ZT. ZT's the premium, Kershaw's. It used to be kind of like a lot of the stuff that was coming out of Kershaw was, it's okay. But ZT, I was like, that's where it's at, man. Their premium end is fire. It's so good. It's kind of flip-flop now. Kershaw is making some of the best value USA knives that are out there, and they honestly have a really great look. And here lately, it's been really hard to justify Zero Tolerance. At least the part of their fan base that enjoyed that specific 2012 to 2017 territory. It's been harder because the prices are increasing and they're not making the stuff that we enjoyed. They're not making the big burly stuff anymore. They're making a lot of super lightweight stuff that's just really not very impressive. It's just not very cool. Well, they came out with this guy somewhere around 2000. When was that? Was it 2018, 2019, somewhere in there? And I was like, whoa, hey, that's awesome. That's a big, wide, thick folding knife. It has the contoured titanium. Super cool, right? But it was in tan. Now, for some reason, there was a huge population of people that got hung up on this hole right here. And if you're part of that weird club, I have no idea what it is you're complaining about. That's weird. But if you don't like it, I think that's perfectly fine. I think that's people, just sort of programmed to hate on ZT, and they picked that hole specifically. I have news for you. Holes in knives are pretty common, but you can get debris in the pivot. You can get debris in the pivot from here or from here. So that's weird. But anyways, that argument is old and dead, and people have already made up their minds on that. If you hate holes, then, well, this has a hole. If you're like me and you think that's a confusing thing to nitpick, then, well, stick around, because I've got a lot of good things to say about this knife. I wasn't the biggest fan of tan. Tan is not a color that I'm getting super excited about. If you do, I don't know. Some people really like the sort of camo color spectrum, and I think that's fine. I think there's a certain tactical crowd that loves those color combos, and that's fine. They still make that version, right? But this was so close to everything I wanted from ZT and just wasn't getting, right? It was so close. I was like, man, I love the model so much. I love the tall, wide blade. I love the big, heavy, contoured scales, right? It just feels like a big, burly knife. I don't need that because I'm just, I'm not doing anything tactical. I'm just opening Amazon packages, but I'm a knife guy, and I like these. These are the elements that I appreciated from Zero Tolerance, right? So I loved the model, and I just kind of choked down the color of the scale and thought, they'll probably release different variations of this. And they did. There was another version of this that I thought was maybe a little bit better. Did they do a Tiger Stripe one? I can't remember. But I just a few weeks ago, or maybe just a couple of weeks ago, I was scrolling through DLT's website, and I saw the 0308 CF. I thought, oh boy. That's a winning combination of materials there. And I looked at the price tag and I was like, oh God, oh, it's so expensive now, right? It's so expensive. I'm not going to sit here through this video and try and convince you that, because this is a $420 knife. So, people skip around because I talk a lot, and they're not going to get the full context. But for those of you who sit and listen, then you're here for this part, This video is not me trying to justify this knife at $420. I don't think that this is a $420 knife. I think the price should be much lower. But holy moly, do I love it, right? And as you all know, as knife people, we can recognize when something is overpriced and at the same time want to buy it still because we love it so much. I can't tell you the number of times I have bought knives that I honestly think are overpriced, but I just really want it, right? So it's kind of like I'm constantly teaching myself my own personal definition of overpriced. It's like sometimes there's a difference between what I would honestly recommend to people buying their first, second, third, fourth, fifth knife, what they're looking for, right? And then what I'm willing to purchase for myself. Now, The truth is that ZT sent me this. I didn't even know it was coming. Sometimes they send me things to show people, right? And sometimes if you look back in my reviews, they send me stuff and I go, nope, I think this is pretty stupid. I don't like this at all. Thanks for the free knife, but I'm not going to tell people they should buy it. And sometimes they send me things and I go, holy moly, I like this. So this is a situation. And sometimes they send me things and I'm like, I like this and it's recommendable and I think it's a great price. This is a situation where they've sent me something, I got it for free, I love it, and I think it's overpriced, right? So I'm not going to recommend people go out and buy this, when they're looking for something that is dollar for dollar the best value out there, right? No. I think you buy this if you're like me and you are a huge fan of that specific time period where zero tolerance was, in my book, like one of the kings of the knife world. Right, and you really have that powerful sense of nostalgia. And if you're like me, then this is going to be that thing. The truth is, had they not sent this to me, I was going to buy it. Thank you, Kai USA, for sending it. I would have bought it. I looked at that price and I was like, whoa, that's way too much money. I'll take it. That's why that's such a common joke. I'm a huge fan of this. And I have to admit, I remember the first version of this with the tan scales, and I was like, wow, I love it, but there was something weird about, I think that it had pivot lash. It had a couple of little tiny fit and finish issues that I started to notice over time. And the truth is that this one doesn't have any of that. The action is perfectly smooth. There's no lumps in the bearing surfaces on the inside. It doesn't have, there was a weird rattle with the other one. This one does not have that. There is no detent lash. It has an absolutely perfect flipping action. The blade is heavy enough that it is falling shut, which is really, really nice. It really just has everything that I want. The cutting bevel is absolutely perfect. The carbon fiber looks so good. I love this sort of matte, kind of half matte, half shiny, contoured, textured carbon fiber with the alligator texturing. I'm a big fan of texturing. Love it. Sort of the long triangle diamond pattern. Really good looking. There's just a couple of things with this model that I find a little bit goofy, right? It's the same thing that I said in the review. Number one, we don't need 3 standoffs. We don't need 3 screws on each side. You really could have just done 1 and 1 here, or 1 and 1 here. The pocket clip positioning is fine, but the pocket clip itself is kind of, well, it kind of sucks. I don't like this stamped out clip. I wish that ZT would have done something special and unique for this knife. They didn't. They just went with the basic ZT clip. It also, in my opinion, looks a little trashy with the ZT logo like right in the middle of the clip. It honestly just feels like, have you ever seen somebody driving, the other day I saw a Chrysler. No, that's not a great example. Let's say, yeah, you know what? Let's use the Dodge Charger, right? Let's say you got a Dodge Charger Hemi, like 5.7. It's a cool looking car. It's not anything spectacular. It's a cool looking car. They put the wide bodies on it. It's kind of robust and muscly. It's really cool. Every now and then, people decide to put big spoilers on them, like Fast and Furious, like wiry sport. And I see that, I'm like, what? Why did you do that? It's awful. I understand that's subjective, and some people are like, I just want to go fast. The downforce. But the truth is it just looks really out of place. It cheapens it up and it looks bad. Not that the Charger is a luxurious vehicle, but I think it's got nice lines and it does look muscly. I think it's doing, whether you like it or not, I think that the look of the Dodge Charger is complete, right? Some people like it, some people don't, but it is like every part of the design of the car looks like it's supposed to be there. This is kind of what that looks like to me, right? And then it looks like somebody slapped a weird, spoiler on the back of it. It's just weird. It looks incomplete, right? Like, go put what it's supposed to be, right? I like that they have it mountable for both left and right-handed people. I spit on this a little bit. Sorry about that. I won't edit that out. I like to be real on this channel. If you spit, own up to it. Normally, I don't like a satin, like a belt or machined satin finish on knives, but the reason I'm okay with it here is because this specific combination brings back that nostalgia that I really, really enjoy with these, specifically these types of ZT knives. this belt satin finish. Very clean. ZT does some of the best. Like, if we're talking about this finish in general, they do like some of the best in existence. It is so clean. So it's not my preference, but it looks the best with their carbon fiber because it makes me think of the 0562, which, looking back, that 0562 with the carbon fiber actually looks a little bit cheap because of the way that the carbon fiber is kind of flat and shiny, right? But then at that point, I was like, oh, it's the nicest thing I've ever seen. ZT logo has always been a little billboardy for me. I think the ZT logo in general is a little, wow. Like at some point, I just would prefer that it was smaller. They still put a lot of crap on the blade, right? It says 0308, Kai USA, M390. This is serial number. I thought it was funny. The serial number on mine is 0392, which is actually a model that they make. It's one of my favorite models. I thought, oh, how funny. Like one of my favorite ZT knives of all time, the ZT 0392, which is modeled almost exactly after the Hinderer Eclipse. So I'm going to keep this one. But it's an in-house design. And, so there's still like little quirks like that I don't like. But there's enough here. And this is by no means a perfect knife. Again, I'm not trying to sell anybody on this particularly. I just wanted to talk about it for people who think like me. It's not a perfect knife. It's pretty darn comfortable. It's got, it's heavy and robust and it feels great. And the geometry is better than I think some people might expect. But for the most part, it's a big, unnecessarily cumbersome folding knife that you don't carry because you need it. You carry it because you think it's cool. That's the territory that we're in, right? And a lot of people just can't stand the idea of spending money on something that doesn't translate to perfect utility. And I would say you're kind of kidding yourself, right? You're just not saying it out loud. Like, we all have preferences. There's little tiny details about these things. If you're watching my channel and you're saying stuff like that, you're kidding yourself. If you're here, there's at least some small part of you who thinks just like me. There's little tiny details that you find preferable, that you will spend more money on, even when you know that there's no reason to spend more money on that element when you can get a thing that performs the same exact way for less money. We all have that. This might not be it for you, but there's something out there, right? And you can deflect and you can cope and blah, blah, blah. You can do that forever and ever and ever until you find the thing that you want. And it doesn't matter if that thing is $50, $100, $200 over your previous line. You will buy it because you will be so compelled because it matches all of those little teeny tiny preferences that you've developed over time, right? You paid attention to the knife world. You paid attention to releases here or there, right? This knife is great for this, but what if I need a knife for this? Oh, I got to have a knife in my truck, right? Well, I got a knife for, I got my like daily care. What if I go to a nice restaurant? Well, I'm going to need a gentleman's folder for that, obviously. Well, I might get tired of it. You know what? I'll just put a few knives in my rotation. I'll just put it just 2 or 3 or 7, just like 7 or 8, maybe 14, right? That's fine. I'll buy those. Man, you know what though? I got a lot of knives in this tier. There is. Actually, I would pay a little bit more money if they just did it like this, but they put this. I saw this material the other day, and man, you know what? If I had that, I would pay a little bit more money for that. Oh, wait, what's this steel? Well, okay, so previously I kind of like steels that are like this. I like this composition and this composition, but I've heard about this new composition that's essentially the same as those combined, but it has extra corrosion resistance, or it's got slightly better edge retention. I'll tell you what, if they did that, I bought this with the scale material I like, but if they did that, if they came out with a version of that with that steel that's just a little bit better and they did this scale, like that combination, you know what? I would pay a little bit more for that. You'll do that. We all do that. Listen, I know a lot of you are like, God dang, are you the voice in my head? I'm not. It's just that all of us are the same. And the people who resist this, who can't admit this to themselves, that you will splurge on the things that you want, even when you know it's too much money to be paying for that stuff. It's human nature. We do this, right? This ZT0308 is not going to be a justified purchase for the vast majority of people. It's so easy to identify that, right? $420. All you're getting is carbon fiber and M390 and titanium. I can get that from Migron. But yeah, sure. If you want to reduce it to materials, right? But when it comes down to exactly what you want, the exact preferences, the thing that makes you increase that threshold, that amount of money that you'll never ever spend over that amount, right? Yeah, you won't until you will, until you find exactly what you want, right? We all have little triggers, right? And the more you expose yourself to the knife world and the knife community, and the more you scroll on Instagram, well, Instagram hates us on, the knife community, but the more that you scroll and the more you expose yourself to, the more likely you are to find that thing that will take your old threshold and blow it away. Just turn it to splinters. This cement wall, right, that you've created, that you're convinced is so fortified, you're so sure in your ability to resist the urge to spend more, right? Nothing can ever penetrate my impenetrable mental wall. It's nothing. It's just a pile of dead leaves waiting to be blown away by the first gusts of autumn. It's nothing. So the ZTO 308CF for me was, oh gosh, it's way more money than I think it should be. Honestly, I think that the 0308 is probably better between $275 and $300. I think that's a much more appropriate price tag. And you know what? Sure, I'd pay another $40 to $50 for the carbon fiber. So I feel like this probably should have been about a $350 knife, but that's not going to stop other people from saying it's overpriced. That's just me. That's where I think the price should be. Am I willing to spend $420 for this knife in particular based on my personal preferences and the enjoyment I got from zero tolerance between 2012 and 2017? Absolutely. And I have no problem admitting that to however many thousands of people will watch this video over the next week or so, or month or year or whatever. I realized I didn't do any specs or anything like that. I just sort of started talking, so I'll probably have edited that stuff into the beginning of the video. But this was a fun talking point for me, and I really, really enjoyed this knife. It's linked down there. Not a lot from Zero Tolerance has been very attractive over the last few years, but if I were ZT, if I was running Zero Tolerance right now, number one, if you've made it to the end of the video, here's something that we have to realize, because it's very easy as nose in the air. We're all knife critics. We're all technically knife reviewers at this point. Everybody who watches my channel, you are, whether you're creating content on YouTube or not, we're all kind of knife reviewers because we critique things all the time that we would or would not buy, right? Because we've experienced so much of this stuff. The more you experience, the more you like to critique what you don't like. If I were running ZT, I would recognize that these nose-in-the-air knife enthusiasts like us, we don't represent the vast majority of the knife world. I don't think a lot of people realize that we are a small piece of this, right? And so the market that they cater to is much larger than us. They must be doing decently well with some of their other models because they keep making them. And it's not like they're throwing their hands in the air and just like, why don't people like... They do sell. I mean, there's lots of major retailers, storefront, brick and mortar that sell zero tolerance knives, right? They do a lot of online stuff. And a lot of the people buying their products are not as interwoven into this social media section of the knife world, right? We are niche. This type of knife is more for us, right? A lot of their other stuff is not. But they also have things from Kershaw that are a little bit for us and a little bit for other markets, right? If I were running zero tolerance, which I know nothing about, right? So if they're watching right now, they could just laugh and be like, well, he doesn't know what he's talking about. I would do more like this. You can I would say it's obviously working for you to make some of these other things that you've been making that are really lightweight and compact and just not super interesting to us. Obviously, they must be interesting to other people, but we should do more things like this. Do more things. There's so many people who do want to see, and you're always going to have critics. You're always going to have people going, that's not what I want, right? And people are kind of programmed to hate on zero tolerance, right? Even people who have never bought a ZT knife. People are like, oh, what are we yelling about? Oh, apparently we don't like this company called ZT because they don't make stuff like they used to. Ah! That's what people do on social media. They have no idea. They're just like, oh, I'm part of it. Yeah, sure. Those people are idiots and we don't have to pay attention to them, right? Literally, their thoughts don't matter because they don't know what it is that they're criticizing. But for the people involved with this and people who want to see that, I think there is still a healthy market and there's still demand for stuff like this, right? I think the pricing is a little out of whack and you're going to appease more people by not trying to bring stuff out like this and charging over $400 for it. I don't know how much room there is, honestly, but I would experiment a little bit more, here or there. They're doing in-house stuff. They're not working with other designers. So to the in-house team, I think this was pretty good. I think you should use this as a foundation and say, what else can we do that's kind of in the same vein, right? I don't know. Those are my thoughts. Wow, I've been talking for 25 minutes. Really enjoy this knife. Price is a little high. I think a lot of other people enjoy it for the same reasons as me. That's going to be it today, guys. This will be linked down in the description if you do want to check it out. Please make sure to follow me on Instagram at metal_complex, and at least for the time being on TikTok at _metal_complex. If you enjoyed this video, leave a like. If you'd like to check out my other content, I do of course have lots of videos of knives that are either expensive or inexpensive that I do or don't like, so check those out. And if you enjoy all my content, go ahead and click on that Metal Complex logo right there and subscribe, because there's definitely more coming. Thanks again for watching, everybody, and have a great day.